Looking around the US, you will see some areas are gaining more wealth. Some areas are seeing massive income inequality. From time to time, it is important to focus on the data to see which regions have a bright future and which are encountering temporary or perhaps more permanent failures as time goes on. Can you guess which cities are seeing the exodus? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, we are going to look at which areas people are fleeing. Let's begin. More people are leaving the New York region than any other major metropolitan area in the country. More than 1 million people moved out of the New York area to other parts of the country since 2010. That's a rate of 4.4%, the highest negative net migration rate among the nation's large population centers, according to the U.S. Census. I'm going to show you some data directly from the U.S. government website. Hang in there. The number of people leaving the region, which includes parts of New Jersey, Connecticut, Lower Hudson Valley, and Long Island, in 1 year swelled from 187 to 223,000 in 2016. It goes on to talk about the statistics and everything else, but I just want to bring up these facts and then ask you, what do you think would cause many people to leave a particular area? Well, let's talk about that right now. This right here is out of CBS, looking at the 10 most expensive cities in America, and Manhattan tops the list. When you see the average rent nearly $4,000, a home is $1.36 million. You know that people are finding it incredibly expensive to live. Take your pick. You got to live somewhere. Are you paying $4,000 for rent per month? Or are you paying a mortgage where you're carrying perhaps $1 million or more? That's what's going on here. Costs are rising in New York, and that has caused many people to flee. That's just one of the reasons. But I believe it is very, very important because we have seen the economic collapse that has taken place and the great divide in between the rich and the poor, and that is ever present in New York at this time. Whenever you set foot into a New York City taxi cab, you're on the hook for a base fee of $3.30, which comprises a 50-cent MTA surcharge. The surcharge was implemented temporarily in 2009, part of their $2.3 billion bailout because of the failed public transportation system. But there's no sign that they will end up getting rid of this. They never do, of course. Call it what you want, a charge, a fee, or a tax. The MTA surcharge is a direct tax imposed by the local politicians on top of the consumer price. That's the way this works. More regulation, more taxation, ultimately burdening the average individual. 50% of New Yorkers' paychecks are going to taxation. In one way, shape, or form, 50% of it. And then on top of that, you're left paying your rent or mortgage, your electricity bills, your food bills, and so on, and you only have half of the amount of money that you actually earned. Taxes make up 27% of every electricity bill, 28% of every cooking gas bill, 10% of every cable bill, and so on. Even bagels are taxed, but only if they're sliced. Think about how ridiculous. Every time you do something, you get taxed. Think about the way taxation works. You go to work. You work your 9-to-5 job. You work your, daily routine for the whole year. Then you realize that, in fact, you were taxed, let's say, 30% of that. All right. So for the first 4 months, you worked for free. But you go to the store. You buy some food at the restaurant. You pay tax on top of that. You go to buy, some sort of groceries at the store, taxed again. You go to fill up your tank of gas, taxed again. You go anywhere, you're getting taxed. So that you're double taxed. You're getting taxed on your income, then whatever percentage you are left with, you then get taxed again as you buy stuff. This is why people can never get ahead. Certain areas, though, they're not as strict. They are not as, I want to use the word like constrictive. I always think of a snake wrapping itself around the person and just squeezing the life right out of them until they're finished. That's the way it works. For the third consecutive year, the Chicago metro area, which includes 9 Illinois counties, 4 in Indiana and 1 in Wisconsin, saw a drop in population, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. It goes on, talks about the details, but this is one of the other areas. I've covered this many times before. You can see what happens right here in the Chicago metro area, in Illinois in general, people fleeing to the nearby states, or at least going out of the major city centers into other places. I have spoken with a lot of people over the years, and they have told me how much they pay for property taxes. And the rate that people I honestly cannot believe that it's allowed that a certain area could ever charge this much. It's criminal. It is criminal how much people are being charged on their property taxes, and we just sit here and we take it. Why? Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it, right? Well, a lot of people are making a stand, and they're moving. They're moving to the areas that see low property taxes. And I got people defending property taxes. Oh, they have to use the money for the schools, and they have to use it for healthcare, and they have to use it for all this. You think your taxes go to actual good use? Do you really think that? Don't be foolish. They could take 100% of all of our taxes. Nothing would change. Absolutely nothing would change. We simply dig ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper. Our tax money goes to drop love on other countries. Our tax dollars gets used so that they can spy on us. Our tax dollars get used to constrict us. The whole point is not to be able to pay for things, okay? The whole point is to make sure you can never, ever come up. All right, I got to move through this quickly. You can see that for the past few years, the population in the Chicago metro area has declined. So while the numbers aren't that dramatic necessarily, the trend is there. And maybe this will be the next Detroit. Who knows? Now, this is directly from the census.gov website. I suggest you check it out for yourself. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's a very long list. At the top of the page is all descriptions and everything. This right here gets into the charts. I'll just cover a few things very quickly. The 10 most populous counties. Los Angeles County tops the list there. Cook County, Illinois at number 2. You can see the largest gaining counties. Arizona, obviously, quite cheap, I think, in comparison to many of the other states. That could be one of the reasons right there. Fastest growing counties, percentage increase. Take a look at this. Top 10 counties with numeric decrease. Cook County is seeing that numeric decrease 0.4%, which again, Not a huge number, but that's a continuing trend. All right. And then I'll just move on right here to show you that. The top 10 counties by percentage decrease. All right. I will have the sources in the description of this video as always. Moving on to California. Every year from 2000 through 2015, more people left California than moved in from other states. The migration was not spread evenly across all income groups, according to the Sacramento Bee. Again, referencing the U.S. Census Bureau data. That's why I always like to see the data itself. I want to be able to, number one, verify the information, but I want to show you the actual source if you want to get it for yourself. That's why I believe that I have different information than a lot of people out there, because I actually show it to you and I give you the link. Everybody else is just saying, I saw it or trust me. No. Don't ever trust me. Take the information I give, do whatever you want with it. Okay? Sources are in the description. The people leaving tend to be relatively poor and lack college degrees, moving higher up in the income spectrum, and slightly more people are coming than going. So that's interesting. About 2.5 million people living close to the official poverty line left California for other states. 1.7 million people at that income level moved in from other states for a net loss of 800,000. Okay, it goes on. I'm not going to cover it all. Essentially, what we can see here is that California is also experiencing some changes. More info on that in the next few articles. Don't want to go on too long. California continues to see more folks moving elsewhere in the nation rather than relocating here, a sign that looks relatively unappealing to others. It's going to go on. I'm not going to bother covering it. It covers a lot of the same information, same in here, but essentially all around you, young and old alike, are saying goodbye to California. 2016 census figures showed an uptick in the number of people who fled the state altogether. However, Las Vegas is one of the most popular destinations for those who leave California. It's close, it's a job center, and those, their cost of living is much cheaper. Plenty of brand new houses going for between $200,000 and $300,000. There's no corporate income tax, no personal income tax, and the regulatory environment is much easier to work with. Think about that for a second. No income tax, no corporate tax. If you're a business, if you're an individual, if you're making even less money, but hey, they're not going to tax you to death. This is a wonderful thing. You can buy a house for $200,000 to $300,000 versus $1.36 million in Manhattan. It looks like a good opportunity. You get better weather. You're going to get generally a cheaper environment to live in. And if you're struggling to make ends meet, it seems like a no-brainer. That's what's going on right here. You look at the areas around the U.S. that are the most expensive for people to live in. You're looking at areas in California. You're looking at Manhattan as two examples. And so people are simply fleeing. That's what's happening today. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge it. A lot of people consider this information to be false. But again, I don't know how. I'm not making it up. I'm reading the information from the actual census.gov website. So it's a little silly to suggest that. But it happens on every video I do regarding this. But here we are. Okay. We're looking at California yet again. I don't want to get into the whole thing. It's basically talking about what's happening here, how more regulations are burdening people, more taxation are burdening people, and ultimately people are falling further and further below the poverty line. You can see that this is the case not just for California, but every area. And the more austerity, the more taxation, the more regulation, the more constriction that they put around individuals, the more they're going to leave. Or they're going to be dependent on government in some way. They'll need social assistance programs, further burdening many individuals. Now, if they decide to leave and they find a place, let's say Las Vegas as that example, they're able to afford it, their lives and everything, as long as they can get work. That's really ultimately what it comes down to. So that's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know that you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can actually flip through these books at Amazon. There are links in the description of this video. Take care.